Hello, everyone. Welcome to Into the Stands. This is the first show after Super Bowl 58. A great game that happened, but of course, we can't start the show without mentioning the very unfortunate thing that happened today at the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl parade. There was shots that run out, and I believe so far the reports are saying that one has been dead, other people have been injured. So obviously, our thoughts and prayers go out to all the victims of this senseless tragedy. But leaving on that note, of course, we have to talk about the game that occurred on in Las Vegas between the Chiefs and the 49ers. And this game started off pretty slow, right? I mean, it was 3-0 for most of the second quarter, 10-3 at halftime. The Niners were leading. The Niners also had a 10-0 lead. But just like the Chiefs seem to always do, they stormed back and come back in this game. At one point, they had the lead in the third quarter. Ultimately, this game ended up going to overtime. It was the second Super Bowl in NFL history to go into overtime. We can talk a lot more about that overtime definitely as we go on in this show. But the Niners responded with a field goal, but the Chiefs came back and scored a touchdown. And just like that, the Kansas City Chiefs are Super Bowl champions. And this is the first back-to-back Super Bowl team in since 20 years, since the 03-04 Patriots. Patrick Mahomes now has his third Super Bowl reign, now clearly cemented himself as the best quarterback in this league, although he already was if you watch any bit of football. And like the title says, there's a dynasty in Kansas City. They truly deserve this. This team with Hall of Fame quarterback Patrick Mahomes, Hall of Fame tight end Travis Kelce, a Hall of Fame head coach Andy Reid, a defense that's the best that we've ever seen so far in this dynasty's era. I mean, this team is, once again, this was the year that the Kansas City Chiefs were supposed to be stopped, right? We talked so much about how bad of a start they had to this season, the receiving core questions. Everyone was talking about, oh, Baltimore is going to be the number one team in the AFC coming here. Everyone was talking about Cincinnati. Wait till Joe Burrow gets healthy, although he missed the end of the season. Buffalo was something what a lot of people, including myself, I could possibly usurp Kansas City for the Super Bowl title. But regardless of everything else, the Kansas City Chiefs remain on top. And this just goes to show you, man, this team really can win the Super Bowl in a year as long as number 15 is under center. It really does not seem to matter. I mean, it's kind of the same thing, like I said before, with those New England Patriots teams with Tom Brady. It's just when you have a guy that special, it really, like, having that quarterback, having the quarterback behind center is really all that matters in the NFL. I mean, it's the difference between Super Bowls, and it's the difference between lifting up the Lombardis and the difference between sitting on the sidelines in agony like the 49ers did. Now, there's so many points that we can go to specifically address in this game. Where do you guys want to start off?
Well, I think I actually want to start with the overtime rules situation where the 49ers apparently forgot the rules. Now, I like football, okay, but I remember sitting there and saying to myself, oh, yeah, I forgot. In the Super Bowl now, time runs out. You know, there's a timer instead of whoever scores the first touchdown or gets the first points being the one that wins. But I'm a fan. I am a college student sitting on my couch watching this game. I'm not a coach. I'm not, a player. You spend the whole year preparing for this moment. We've been talking about the 49ers being the team that was going to get here and represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. I know maybe some of them would want to be, I don't think they would want to tell you this, but I'm pretty sure they were preparing for this game as well since the beginning of the season. How do you not know the rules? That makes no sense. That makes absolutely no sense. And this team is perfect. They're almost perfect, other than the fact that they, lost this final game. They have it all. I don't think you're going to be seeing that many huge improvements with the 49ers going into next year. Under normal circumstances, though, I would say somebody needs to be fired because of this. I just don't know who you can fire.
Well, actually, Steve Wilkes, defensive coordinator, just got fired. Now, my thoughts on that, though, is, like, once again, obviously you can always point to what happened in overtime, but I truly do believe the San Francisco 49ers did just about as good of a job as you could have expected them to do in that situation. I mean, Vegas had them as the favorites. I believe they were like 4-point favorites in the Super Bowl, but I think everyone who knows football and was watching that game felt like Kansas City was going to win that game. Even when the 49ers had that 10-0 lead, I felt like eventually the Chiefs are going to come and do what they always do, come back and win this game. But in terms of the overtime, which you mentioned there, that got enacted, obviously, after that heartbreaking Bills-Chiefs playoff game back in 2022, where you remember that both teams were basically trading blows on offense, exchanging touchdowns up and down the field. The Chiefs won the coin toss, though, which means that they got the ball first. The Bills never were able to respond. So despite the rule being in effect for, it said 28 games, this is the first time that we got to see the new overtime rules. And personally, I think they were great. I think that this is definitely a good move going forward because Now, there's a lot of discourse that's going on about whether or not the Niners should have taken the ball first or the third. And what I love about this rule is that I think that there's definite arguments for both sides because, listen, if the 49ers take the ball first and say they scored a touchdown, then say if the Chiefs came back and scored a touchdown, the Niners would then have the chance to win the game. But another scenario, say the Niners deferred to the Chiefs, and let's say the Chiefs went and scored a touchdown, went for one, they go up by 7. That then gives Niners an opportunity to realize, okay, we win the Super Bowl if we score a touchdown and get a 2-point conversion. So there's a lot of different things to go about it, but if it actually is true, which the reports are coming out and saying if the 49ers players did not know about the overtime rules, I can't believe that. I mean, I think most fans knew that rule got changed, that both teams get the ball. I mean, it's almost like what would have happened if the Niners scored a touchdown there in that drive with some of the players that thought they won the Super Bowl? Like, that cannot happen. And it makes it even worse when I mentioned the whole rule with going for 2 and all of that, because that's something you have to really consider. Because apparently, if the Niners scored a touchdown there, the Chiefs are going to go for 2 regardless. So there's so much strategy that comes into this because, like, say, for example, the Niners scored a touchdown. Do you go for 2? Because if you go for 2, then the Chiefs, worst case scenario, you still get the ball back. So I think going forward, this is going to teach a lot of teams to really prepare for a potential playoff overtime. But I think just in general, this is a great rule. Because like I said, yeah, I think there's arguments to both kicking it off and going for it. So I don't think you can really fault San Francisco for taking that ball first. Cause always, if you're in overtime, you want to have the ball first, right? And listen, they almost scored a touchdown on that final play there before they punted back to the Chiefs. We saw Brock Purdy have Brandon Ayuk wide open in the end zone, but for whatever reason, Chris Jones was unblocked. And that really was a deciding factor in that play. Brock Purdy had to throw it away. But listen, I mean, I really like that overtime. It almost went to double overtime. We were just 3 seconds off it going to double overtime, which if you remember, actually, Adam Schefter tweeted earlier in the week that one of the NFL chairs people kind of as a joke said that we're going to get the first ever double overtime Super Bowl, and it almost happened. I mean, we were very close. I mean, it's crazy, too, because both of those drives from both the Chiefs and 49ers took up basically the entirety of the overtime period except for those 3 seconds. But, I mean, just in terms of that, and even more so, too, on that final drive that the Chiefs had, they were down to a 4th and 1. If the Niners were able to stop them on that 1 yard, the Niners would have won the Super Bowl right there. But what did the Chiefs do on that play? They ran out the shotgun with Patrick Mahomes, and they let the ball go into his hands. In most other cases, we've seen teams on 4th and 1s, plow it up the middle with their running back, do a QB sneak. But this just really goes, I think, to me, this is the most telling play for what the Chiefs see Patrick Mahomes as. With a yard to go with the Super Bowl on the line, they put the ball in his hands, giving him the option either run the ball or pass it. And he ran it and he got the yards. And really and the Chiefs never really looked back. Yeah. That drive went very smoothly up and down the field. And then obviously the game winning touchdown to McCall Harmon will go down in the history books. And, just even more so after that overtime, too, just the images from that game. You talk about Patrick Mahomes falling down on the sideline. I argue that's probably going to be one of the most iconic photos of his career. You talk about MVS holding up the Chiefs flag and playing it down on the Super Bowl logo or the NFL logo. I mean, iconic photos. I think when we look back, when it's all said and done, this may be the most iconic Super Bowl of Patrick Mahomes' career. Because, I mean, and it didn't look like it in the first half, but I truly believe what we saw on Sunday was one of the greatest Super Bowls of all time.
Robbie looks like he disagrees with that statement.
Not really. I mean, I don't think you can put that statement on saying this is the most iconic Super Bowl of Patrick Mahomes' career yet. And
so far,
100%. But I just want to give my thoughts on this game as well. You made a lot of good points, and you brought up Chris Jones. There's another play that I want to bring up. This is 3rd and goal. On the overtime drive, we had a phenomenal route from, what was his name? Juwan Jennings. The wide receiver had a great route. He was wide open right side of the end zone. How did the play get blown up? Chris Jones gets untouched again. That happened twice. You brought up the first time. This was the second one. They had a Jennings wide open right side end zone. You had your free touchdown right there. There's other plays that were missed that could have ended the Super Bowl as well. I'm going to go back to the 4th quarter here. And there's a play with the Chiefs where they could have won the Super Bowl. On the last offensive play they had before the field goal, Patrick Mahomes, if he waited another second instead of automatically throwing it to Kelsey, had Rashee Rice wide open in the middle of the field. He did. Rashee Rice would have to catch it in stride and take 2 steps, and he's gone. That's your game. And I thought that's how it was going to end because I think a lot of the public saw Rashee Rice wide open. It like the Red Sea opened up for him for how wide open he was. But this game we started it off with a Christian McCaffrey fumble, which I already knew this game was going to be chaos. Because I mean, when you get roasted by SpongeBob on the Nickelodeon broadcast because he said firmly grasp it, and which one I thought that was hilarious. That and then which you don't see Christian McCaffrey fumble at all. We saw multiple turnovers. I mean, this game. I mean, you saw Patrick Mahomes throw a pick. I thought that was even more unorthodox. Which I want to talk to you guys about this idea though. Were you impressed by Purdy at all in this? It's a weird question. I wasn't. I mean, wasn't hard.
The Niners were good on third down. I saw the stat they went 3 for 12, but I mean, it's just this is why the Brock Purdy discourse is what it is, because listen, he did a pretty good job. For a second-year quarterback, I saw he's the third youngest quarterback to start in the Super Bowl. I mean, he made good plays. There's no doubt about it. He didn't, throw the interception like Patrick Mahomes did, but it just comes down to that point where there in the overtime period, end of the fourth quarter, when you need special, this is truly where the guys separate themselves when it comes to Lombardi time. Patrick Mahomes made the plays, Brock Purdy didn't. And listen, there's no slight on Brock Purdy. As I said, he's an amazing story, amazing player. He's had an amazing career so far, considering where he's been drafted and all that. But it's just like he's not Patrick Mahomes, and that's okay because they almost won the Super Bowl without having Patrick Mahomes. But there really was a difference there. And listen, like I said, made good plays, but I mean, there were some things that I did like. But it just comes down to that fact that one team had Brock Purdy and the other team had Patrick Mahomes. And obviously third down, there's even a point there too, if you remember that before the Chiefs went back on that drive, which tied the game, they could have realistically, if they kept getting first downs, they could have run out the clock, maybe kicked the game-winning field goal, ended the game 19-16. But just once again, the offense just couldn't get it done in the late stages. I mean, for about what you would expect of Brock Purdy, because I thought the Niners offense would be worse personally against that Chiefs defense. I think that's just about a job as you could have asked Brock Purdy to do. It's just, once again, that is what Brock Purdy is.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly true. Listen, the 49ers, they got this far with Brock Purdy. I don't see them moving on from him. Definitely not. Keep it the same way. Hopefully you don't run into Patrick Mahomes in next year's Super Bowl if you get there, right? Assuming everything else is good. But, everything else with this team is strong, right? We know about the offensive weapons. Defensively, I think overall, I mean, it wasn't bad. It was a tight game. I mean, it was overall a well played game. I think defensively, I mean, they did as good of a job as they could have. Again, this was an excellent game. It went down to the final seconds. If you know me, I'm someone who hates to see repeated champions, but this is the first time I think I was ever really, satisfied with this repeat champion. I think this team deserved it. We had the best against the best. That's why I was against the possibility of an Astros-Phillies World Series this past year. You're not gonna find a person who was happier with the Rangers Diamondbacks than I was. I mean, that was unbelievable. And I think even then, right? The one I kept bringing up was the Rams Bengals. That one I loved. I mean, it was different teams that still haven't gotten back there since. That was one of my favorites ever. And others, like, just seeing these smaller teams sneak their way to the Super Bowls or the final of any sport is always satisfying for me. But this is the first time where legitimately two of the best teams that this game had to offer, right? The storylines of, right, Patrick Mahomes just being the better quarterback and being better in the big moments is just what it came down to at the end of the day. I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's what this game could be summed up in one sentence, or one name, Patrick Mahomes. That he was the guy, he was the difference, and that's why he was going to win the MVP. Even if it was a defensive performance, right? We all know that they're here. The main reason they're here is number 15. That's the main reason they're here, and he won his MVP, the third in his career. Already unbelievable. I mean, other storylines.
Kelsey in the second half. Second half had in overtime had 92 yards. He had 1 yard in the entire first half. And we saw that moment with his interaction with Andy Reid. We did see that. And he comes out and steps up big too. And I want to bring this up. One thing that really opened up Travis Kelsey was, I hate to bring this up, was the Dre Greenlaw injury. When he got himself hurt on the turf, when he was trying to run out and he got injured. That was like, because Dre Greenlaw, I believe, was going after Kelsey in the first half. And I think that's what the matchup was. He limited him to 1 yard. Dre Greenlaw, for those who don't know, Dre Greenlaw, the entire playoff run, was essentially everywhere. He was making so many big plays against Green Bay, again in the last round of the playoffs. He's done it everywhere. He's been so big for them all year. To lose a guy like that, I knew it was the Chiefs were going to win when Dre Greenlaw got injured the way he did. It was really sad.
And just when you see a player just run out on the field after a punt return, I mean, that's just about as awful as it gets. I mean, you're talking about a guy who now for the entire offseason has to rehab a torn Achilles. Who knows if he'll even see the field next year? The Achilles recovery time is very challenging, especially for a linebacker. But yeah, like you said, just Travis Kelce in general. I mean, the interaction he had with Andy Reid, I didn't like that at all because obviously the play where it happened after was when Patrick Mahomes hit a deep shot to Hardman, and Kelce was wide open, but obviously I think they would have got more yards by hitting Hardman. And it's kind of crazy because especially with how much national spotlight was on Travis Kelce in this game for him to deal with that, I felt like if the Chiefs lost, that would have been a much bigger story than what it ended up being with them winning. But yeah, going off in that second half, I remember in the end of the fourth quarter there when he had that big catch and run, I thought for a second before the last defender came in there, he was going to score that storybook walk-off touchdown, even on that overtime drive too, right? He came close to the end zone on the catch and run. Travis Kelce he elevates himself in the biggest moments. And much like what Rob Gronkowski was to Tom Brady, this is what Travis Kelce is to Patrick Mahomes, a guy who, sure, he didn't have the best regular season, but when it mattered most, he came through. And now a tight end with free reigns, he's already cemented himself. You can debate who the greatest tight end is in NFL history. I mean, he's definitely in that argument. You have to respect it. I mean, the longevity too. I mean, we talk about him and Gronkowski. I mean, they're both the same age, but Gronkowski's already retired, and Kelce's still doing it at this high of a level. But yeah, I think the Andy Reid thing could have been a much bigger deal. Andy Reid was apparently saying that he was just saying, to like get him the ball more involved. I don't think it was that. I think Kelce, kind of had an outburst. I mean, sure, it's natural to happen on a big stage like that, but yeah, that was definitely something I didn't see coming when I first started watching that game.
Yeah, I mean everything, and overall, listen, it was just a really good game. I mean, again, it was an excellent game. Again, it's the fact that the two best teams going against each other that it just felt like an overall just a memorable Super Bowl, but nothing yeah, obviously we're gonna remember it, a great game, the two best teams, but it was just a good Super Bowl overall. Like nothing bad, nothing everything in the game is what everyone is talking about. Like off the field stuff wasn't, even though I mean, yeah, some stuff was being focused on, but for the most part, right? Beyond anything, it was the game on the field that was the biggest talking point at the end of it. Not the halftime show, commercials, all that. It was the game on the field, which is the game's going to be remembered by, and that's always good.
And even better too. I mean, there was really no controversial calls in this game either. I mean, that's always a plus too, because we remember last year how we could have possibly had a classic. We could have seen last year's game go into overtime too if the Eagles got the ball back earlier, right? But just having a game that was this great, and it's not going to be a lot of controversy behind whether or not the refs made the right call here, the wrong call there, bad, whatever. But I think we should obviously move over a little bit more to the San Francisco side of the ball. I want to shout out specifically Christian McCaffrey. Although he did have, the fumble on that first drive, they could have got points out of that. I thought he gave it. I thought he put his all on the field on Sunday. I think that he's been the heart and soul of this offense, as I said before on this show, and just the way he willed his team in that overtime period, getting near the goal line. We saw him even on the sidelines too, sitting now for a play for when Elijah Mitchell came in. Christian McCaffrey looked gassed. He gave it his all out there. You cannot, I think, fault him with this loss. Also, Juwan Jennings, listen. He is the second guy in NFL history to throw and catch a touchdown in the Super Bowl behind Nick Foles. He was sensational. I mean, for a guy who really does not get that much playing time, a guy who you don't think of a lot, he was great in this game. It really stepping up when the moment matters most. But what was concerning to me was George Kittle. He was really non-existent in this game. And you see what Travis Kelce did. I mean, we talk about Kittle as being one of the best tight ends in football. He really did not have a good performance there. And we saw in that overtime period, he got an injury, he had to run out, but he clearly, really wasn't himself. So it's just a game of margins. It's the way it goes. But I think that especially if you look back at this game for the Niners, I mean, Nick Bosa too was very disruptive in that first half. The way he was, I mean, he didn't register any sacks, but he was really getting at Mahomes, applying the pressure there. I mean, listen, I think that Christian McCaffrey and Juwan Jennings deserve all their flowers, but like I said, the margins of the Super Bowl are very thin, and the 49ers just couldn't get there at that point.
Yeah, I'm disappointed with the wide receiving game. Besides Jennings, I mean, Brandon Ayuk only 3 catches, Deebo Samuel went 3 for 33. He did get injured briefly with a hamstring injury, But I want to talk about Brandon Ayuk for a moment here. Because according to sources, Brandon Ayuk went out and he gave a cryptic response to whether he wants to stay with the Niners. Which, one, why? I know why he wants the money. Brandon Ayuk, when he got drafted, a lot of people were comparing him. From what I remember, he had like the wingspan and the build of Megatron, except he was like shorter. I think that's what it was. And Brandon Ayuk, coming out of Arizona State, very fast. He do a lot of things right. He was drafted late in the first round. And he's been phenomenal for San Francisco. Now, my thing here is because the Niners, he's going to be on his 5th-year option next season. This is worrying if I'm a San Francisco fan, because why the heck would he come out right after the Super Bowl nonetheless? If this happened in March, this would be even more crazy. It would be during free agency and people would have it like the chance to trade for this man. But why? Why would you do this? It doesn't make any sense. Now, Brandon Ayuk had I'm calling it a subpar game for the standards of Brandon Ayuk now. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Christian McCaffrey had 8 catches, but Brandon Ayuk didn't even have 50 receiving yards. Deebo Samuel had 33, but Juwan Jennings had more catches than Brandon Ayuk, and Brandon Ayuk is a top 2 receiver on this team and part of a top receiving duo in the game. This whole situation, you brought up George Kittle. I don't even know where he was half the time. He had 2 catches for 4 yards, basically like what he was in fantasy this year. He goes out and he plays a decent couple of games before and then just falls irrelevant in bigger games. I love George Kittle. I think he's phenomenal. He's a top tight end in the game. But I don't like that we get to call this man a top tight end without him showing up in a big game like this. I mean, Kyle Juszczyk has more yards than George Kittle. For those who don't know, Juszczyk, I don't know how you say it. Juszczyk. There you go. Thank you. Plays fullback, and he had more catches than a star tight end. This doesn't make any sense. I mean, he also less yards.
Well, Kyle Juszczyk's a great player. I don't think we can discredit him there.
Yes. But he had less yards than my boy Ray McLeod. Don't ask why, he's my guy. But his college highlight tape and his kick returning skills are ridiculous. Chris Conley, shout out Chris Conley. He was very disruptive in the special teams department. He had a lot of big tackles. So like this receiving core was highlighted, and the tight end plays were highlighted for more of the wrong reasons than better, because they weren't really that good. For Brock Purdy, he went 23 of 38. 8 of those completed passes went to Christian McCaffrey, and he had 80 yards. So you're telling me that these solid receivers and the great tight end only led to sub 160 yards. How? I mean, the leading receiver that actually plays wide receiver in this game, and I hate to say this because I'm a Jets fan, and this guy played for the Jets for like 5 weeks, was McCole Hardman. What? I mean, he had that one deep play, but he had 3 for 57. He was the leading receiver in this game. If you want to talk about the guy who had the most most catches, by a non-running back, it was Rashee Rice, which makes sense. Rashee Rice is really good. He had a chance to catch the touchdown late on. But some of these stats are absolutely infuriating. I still don't even know what to think about Brandon Ayuk yet, because the fact that this report came out right away after the Super Bowl, concerning.
And there's 2 other plays that I'm sure the Niners would love to have back, and there's 2 that really were so vital in the second half of the game. You talk about that muff punt, and this is really just about as unlucky of a play as you can imagine, because it's not that the Niners weren't aware. It's just that, they're going back to defend and the ball hits off the leg, and that's when it has to become a scramble for the football. If you remember, the Niners were winning at that point. They stopped the Chiefs offense. They had to punt it away, and ultimately right after is when Mahomes hit that touchdown to Marquez Valdes-Scantling. And that really was the turning point in this game to me. I think that's when the Niners, because the Niners have won games like this before, right? They can rely on the defense. They can rely on the running game to roll them to victories. And the Niners defense was great throughout that first half in the third quarter. I mean, they had their concerns with how they played against the Packers, how they played against the Lions, especially too in that first half. But it was a great effort. But it really goes to show you special teams are important. And you want to talk about another special teams play? How about that blocked extra point? Another one where They were up by 3 points. They hit that go-ahead touchdown to Juwan Jennings. They could have taken a 4-point lead, and that was monumental because if you remember, the Chiefs were stopped in the red zone, and they ended up kicking the field goal to tie the game. And that means the Chiefs would have had to have gone for a touchdown there. So if the Niners were able to stop the Chiefs back then, they could have got the ball back with a 4-point lead. That could have been the Super Bowl. We could be talking about a whole different outcome. We could talk about the 49ers being the Super Bowl champions. But special teams, man, you never really think about it, but they can always come up when you least expect it. I mean, even if you talk about long field goals, Moses Moody held the Super Bowl field goal record Jake Moody for about a couple minutes there before Harrison Bucker ended up taking it back. So special teams were really a big factor in this game. And listen, you can never count out special teamers and the mistakes that you can make and how pivotal it can be in changing the outcomes of football games.
Yeah, you guys covered it. I mean, again, overall, just an incredible game, right? Back and forth. I remember, right. I actually, not to toot my own horn, but yeah, I picked a 24-21 Super Bowl. It was 25-22. So I was 2 points off, right?
Crystal ball over here.
But no, I mean, yeah, I think I don't even know what else to say, honestly.
My score prediction was so close in regulation. I was out if it ended 19-16, I would have also been 2 points off. Shout out.
This question came up a lot, right? What's a celebrity you'd go to the Super Bowl with? I don't know if you heard this one.
Ooh,
Post Malone. Because I saw him,
that's a
do
great
America
shout,
the Beautiful. He is a big Cowboys fan. We saw him at the after party. There's an interaction with Brittany Mahomes where she told him to take off the Cowboys jersey and put on the Chiefs one, which he ended up doing. Shout out to him as well. Did a great job on America the Beautiful.
Yeah, Post Malone's excellent. I mean, just an all around good guy. I mean, he's willing, right, to be willing to do that to take off the Cowboy jersey, put on the Chiefs jersey. It kind of says,
I don't know who I would
says
pick.
a lot about him.
I don't know who I would pick. There's a couple options, but I don't know. I just feel like I don't know. Post Malone's a great option. That's what I was gonna go with originally, but I want to feel different.
What do we think about the Usher halftime show?
Also, I've gotten I have to go first for this. I've gotten a lot of hate for my rating. I rated out of 10. I originally gave it a 2, and I got a lot of hate for that. So, and I upgraded it to a 4. And I'm still gonna stick with a 4 because, like, one, Usher. How many songs do you guys actually know of Usher?
Well, the two obviously big ones are which he ended up performing at the end. But yes. I think I would have personally wanted to have seen DJ Got Us Falling in Love Again for whatever reason. Yes. Did not do that. I think it was cool he brought out Alicia Keys, Lil Jon, Ludacris. I think Alicia Keys should have maybe been a bigger part of the halftime show. Maybe she should have got her own songs because realistically, I think Alicia Keys has a bigger catalog than Usher does. I mean, I get. You want to go back to because back when Usher was really at the top of the game, we went with a lot of classic rock, alternatives for the big game, Super Bowl. That's really what they were doing. So they kind of want to, get more hip hop acts in the game. Mm-hmm. I think Post Malone should have got the call personally. He was in the building there. I think maybe that's something that can happen in the future. But listen, with what Usher could have been, I think he did a good job. He really was into the performance. It was a fun thing to watch. Super Bowl halftime show is always fun to me. But I think I would have wanted to see DJ Got Us Falling in Love Again.
Yeah, I'm not gonna give it a rating out of 10. I thought it was overall it was good. It was good halftime show. It wasn't the best that I'd ever seen, but it also wasn't awful or anything. And it was very good. I think it's still good songs. Even if I didn't recognize all of them, they were still good. I mean, it was still an entertaining Super Bowl. And as for celebrity, I would go to the Super Bowl with. I'm choosing Larry David.
Larry David,
very funny guy. Knows everything. Knows a lot about sports. Big Jets and Yankees fan. So I have great conversations with him about football. He loves the Giants. I remember he was talking about Daniel Jones one time, and very observational, right? That's what his comedy is, right? If you watched Curb or Seinfeld, very observational, based on things that you wouldn't even find to be funny. So I can just imagine him just making jokes about everything. He was actually he was very funny. He said once that he would make a great head coach in the NFL or a great offensive coordinator, and that he's a firm believer. And this is more of a joke that kickers should be completely removed from the game of football.
There's a lot of people out there who say that.
His reasoning was funny. Like I'm not saying I agree with it, but it was just funny, his reasoning for it.
Chris, what did you think was the best commercial? My personal pick was Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito.
That's a great pick.
Seeing those two get reunited.
Good.
I liked there were a lot. I liked of course Dunkings with Dunkin' commercial with Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, and Tom Brady, right? The Boston guys. That was funny.
That's
Chris Pratt, Pringles commercial was interesting.
Chris Pratt being casted as Mr. Pringle is I mean, he seems like Chris Pratt's like getting casted in every single role now.
There was one. I forgot. It was like a drink, and it was like I think the guy that plays Ron Swanson in Parks and Rec was Jon Snow from Game of Thrones. They were flying on a dragon. If you remember that one, that was a good one. The Kingdom of Planet of the Apes trailer was interesting. A lot of good ones.
A lot of movie trailers, I felt like.
Oh yeah,
But that's what always happens, just in general.
Really? I didn't
Yeah,
feel
no,
like last year I didn't feel like there were many.
No, there's always movie trailers to go about. I remember the Deadpool versus Wolverine one was also a big one during this game as well. But yeah, I think there's a lot of fun spectacles that come for this. But I think if we look at the bigger scale for this is going to be the ultimate thing that's going to come good. We're going to talk about going into next offseason. Can the Kansas City Chiefs repeat? No team has ever done it before. What do we think?
Yes. I think they're going to go out big in free agency this year. And I think there's going to be now my free agency prediction. I actually have some of these written down already. Has a big time receiver landing in Kansas City, and it's actually a very popular option. I'm talking about T. Higgins. I like T. Higgins in Kansas City. He fits the type of bill to pair with Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice being more of a number 2 guy, I feel like would make more sense. I think the value for T. Higgins went down because he had a terrible season. It just feels like the stars would align for that. And I feel like if they can land T. Higgins, they're already going to be a Super Bowl contender, even more than they were this year, because they're going to have a real number 1 wide receiver. Hopefully he can stay healthy the whole time. But I feel like if they land someone like T. Higgins, maybe Mike Evans, I know he's a free agent this year, like someone big like that, a big physical wide receiver, I feel like could really help them out in the long run. That can make them more of a contender, even more than they are now. I feel like offensive line, I think they'll probably prioritize that in the draft, honestly. But I think right away landing T. Higgins, and I feel like they would do that within about 5 seconds of free agency starting. I feel like it would instantly boost them back to the top of any power rankings in the game of football.
And I saw a discourse about people saying that the Chiefs' victory now mean that teams don't have to go out and spend a lot on wide receivers. And I mean, yeah, if you have Patrick Mahomes, you don't have to worry about having great wide receiver talent. But for so many other teams, the wide receiver position is very valuable. Yeah. And if the Chiefs are able to get T. Higgins, that'd be a phenomenal boost. But listen, this team is going to be back, and they're going to be a team that, listen, if there's any team in NFL history that could do it, the Kansas City Chiefs could do it. But I'm actually going to do this right here, right now. I'm going to call my shot and predict what Super Bowl 59 is going to be just a couple days after Super Bowl 58. Cincinnati Bengals versus Green Bay Packers. You heard it here first.
That's one on the left field, that's for sure.
Yeah, I just figure throw it out there, see what happens. But I think the Bengals can do it, but it's just so hard, obviously, to get back there consecutively. I mean, the Patriots back in the late 2010s made 3 Super Bowls in a row. They won, lost, and won. But just 3 in a row is something that'd be really unprecedented in the sport. And like I mentioned with Cincinnati, I mean, that's a team that really knows how to be Kansas City in the postseason. We have to see if Buffalo and Baltimore can learn, but they're definitely the hunted right now, and every single team in the league is going to try to catch up to Kansas City. So the free repeat is going to be hard, but I think it can be done.
Yeah, no, I think obviously they can do it. They can do it. As for will they? I don't know. I don't think I'll comment on that. I don't think that's fair. A couple of days after the Super Bowl, I mean, but I guess early Super Bowl prediction. Yeah, I mean the Packers are great out of the NFC. You know what? I'm gonna say we're gonna get that. I'm gonna say we're gonna get that Lions Chiefs. I think we're gonna get what we wanted this year. I think
I'd love the Lions to come back there.
I think the Lions are gonna be back. I think they're very good, right? It looked like they're getting better only, right? They still looked very good in the playoffs. They didn't look awful. They didn't choke for a team that hadn't been there. So they did blow the lead, but right, they didn't. What I mean by didn't choke is they didn't look completely awful in the playoffs.
And it's crazy to think about too, because an NFC North team has not been in the Super Bowl since 2010 when the Packers won it all. I mean, this is a division that they always do have some sort of success. The Packers, the Lions, Bears, or Vikings are always somewhat relevant, but they never can really seem to get there. But I just think that next year, that Green Bay versus Detroit games, those are going to be great. I think that Green Bay really took off in the second half. They had that game on Thanksgiving, which is really fun. I think that Green Bay and Detroit is going to be a bloodbath next year in the NFC North.
I mean, looking at the Super Bowl logo already, it's like a red with green in it. So Colin's shout with the following the Packers, I feel like is really good. It's really going to come down to me if the Chiefs address the receiver position more. Because if they land a guy like T. Higgins, they're automatically in my Super Bowl. I don't care what anyone says. They're automatically going to be back here. Out of the NFC, I mean, I think the only team next year in the AFC that can really go after them, I need them to get healthy, but that would be the Buffalo Bills. They need to get healthy on defense. They need a legit corner to pair with Tre'Davious White, because Tre'Davious White, I feel like, no offense to Tre'Davious White, I love Tre'Davious White, but it's felt like he spent more time in the hospital than on the field. So I think if you get someone, Rasul Douglas, cool guy, Tre'Davious White's that dude. If you can get another corner to pair with them, I don't know who that would be. I think safety address. I mean, just to get depth, because I think they might be losing Poyer. Possibly, who knows at this point. I think that could really help out Buffalo. The Ravens, they just need to figure it out. They lost McDaniel. I think they're going to fall off a little bit. I would say they have probably Kansas City would be back. NFC. Now, I think no one's going to like this pick, but if you want to talk about repeats, I think one team you're going to have to throw in this conversation is the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I don't like the Philadelphia Eagles. I hate putting them in this conversation to begin with. But I think they're going to figure it out. Possibly. Which is why I'm not picking them to be in this game. I have other teams you could throw in there. You could throw in Dallas. You could throw in Green Bay. I think it's a great shout. I'm thinking Detroit will be in it. Out of the West, South's not going to have anyone competitive. I don't think so. Unless the Falcons trade for Fields, which I actually think they're going to do. The West, if you really think about the colors, what if Seattle goes all in? Like, that is the green of the Seattle Seahawks third jersey, or whatever jersey it is. I think that's a good shout with Seattle.
I don't think Geno Smith's going to lead him to a Super Bowl.
I don't. Listen, if Jimmy Garoppolo can do it, Geno Smith. Listen,
but that Seattle roster is nowhere near that Niners roster in 2020.
They could be if they develop.
I mean, it's a bunch of big ifs. I just didn't know about Mike McDonald as the hire a head coach.
Yeah, I didn't think that was right.
I thought Dan Quinn would be more obvious, right? Because he was the guy who orchestrated the Legion of Boom. I thought that was the way they were going to go.
That's a great shot.
I mean, but we'll see what Mike McDonald does. I thought Dan Quinn was their guy, or maybe going for offense. But yeah, I mean, the Rams had a pretty good end to that season too. So I think the Rams could definitely challenge San Francisco going forward.
They need an offensive line. They need competent defense. They need help on defense. I mean, they lose. I had no hope for them after they traded Jalen Ramsey. But the fact that they did this all without an elite corner is concerning for the rest of the NFC. So I think, if there's any teams I think that could be aggressive, you think Los Angeles, you're thinking Seattle, and you're thinking the Philadelphia Eagles. That's the three teams because listen, Philadelphia needs to figure it out. And I don't think, who did they hire? I don't think hiring Kellen Moore was the right option for them. But to be fair, what other options were there? Like, was there any other option better than Kellen Moore as offensive coordinator?
I mean, usually in most cases like that, you'd poach a guy from another staff. But Kellen Moore has been out of a job for, I believe it was I think it was the
2 months, the Chargers.
2 months, yeah, the Chargers. Yeah. So obviously, I mean, the Chargers offense had kind of its, obviously you don't know how much of that was Justin Herbert and how much of that was Kellen Moore. So there's a lot that has to be seen there. I think Philadelphia can be back because I don't believe it was a talent problem. I believe it was more of a coaching problem. I think that both coordinators, I think that Brian Johnson obviously did a very bad job as the OC calling plays there. John Desai, Matt Patricia, that didn't work out as well. But I mean, also we have to really have a conversation about Nick Sirianni. I'm not sure how to feel about him because he obviously made that Super Bowl before, but we see what Shane Steichen did in Indianapolis, and we see how Jonathan Gannon was even making the Arizona Cardinals competitive in a lot of games. You have to wonder how much of that did fall on Sirianni. I think we'll get a big answer next year towards that. But I think for the next part of the show, I think we have to talk more about legacy here. And I'm going to preface this by saying that I am about as big of a Tom Brady supporter as there is. I think that he is undoubtedly the greatest player in the history of football. I think that he is, maybe debatably the greatest athlete of all time. But the discussions that are now going to arise, especially now in the coming years, are going to be whether we have the next GOAT debate in our hands between Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. And there's so much that more has to be done. And for me personally, I think it's always going to be extremely, extremely difficult to ever give Mahomes the edge over Tom Brady, especially seeing as how I saw a 43-year-old Tom Brady defeat a young Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. But we have to have the question, what does Mahomes need to do to possibly get into that conversation with Tom Brady and match that legacy? He
needs to match the Super Bowls. Absolutely. I think with how good Tom Brady was. Listen, Patrick Mahomes has, 3 already? I think he can get it there. But with the era that Tom Brady played in, with how much different the game is, I don't really think that it's one of those where it's like different eras somewhat. I think the only reason I would have put Mahomes in this conversation is how long is he going to be able to play for? Listen, eventually his team will not be as elite. Eventually. And I'm talking probably in like 7 years, but we're just throwing that idea out there. But I think he needs to what records does Brady have? What records Tom Brady hold on.
I mean,
Well,
essentially all of them. I mean,
wait,
longevity.
yeah, I mean, I'm not ready to make that claim yet that Mahomes is better, but definitely. I mean, we say like a young Patrick Mahomes was defeated by the 43-year-old Tom Brady, but that was also Patrick Mahomes that already won a Super Bowl. So I think that's a pretty good comparison between the two. Like
that's a great shout.
I think that was a good Tom Brady and still a very good Patrick Mahomes, right? Who had figured it out too. So that's something that definitely I think goes on Tom Brady's resume over Patrick Mahomes as well. But I think definitely he's off to the best, a great start, especially proving that he doesn't need the best team around him to win. He can be the guy that's the difference maker at the end of the day. And I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know if what it's going to take to defeat him. I mean, every year he's been close. He's made the championship game every single year in his career, and he was only stopped by Brady and
Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow,
right? Who also has not been back here since then. So I mean, it's really interesting. It really is a good debate, obviously, I think in a way I'd be rooting for Mahomes just because I'm witnessing it now. Also, I always like to witness history, but I'm nothing against Tom Brady. I mean, that was still I am not ready to make that argument yet. I like to see history be rewritten.
I mean, I always feel an affinity towards Tom Brady, though, because, I watched him, back the first season I watched football was obviously when the Giants beat the Patriots, Super Bowl 46, just seeing that guy who, and this is something I want to talk about, too, as well, because the next decade is going to be pivotal for this Chiefs team, because we remember back in 2005 when the Patriots won 3 Super Bowls in 4 years, it took them a decade to win another. And obviously there was the 2 losses to the Giants in between that, some couple wacky playoff losses to the Jets as well. Listen, you can never automatically think that just because we have the best quarterback in the league, we can never think that you're going to go back there to the Super Bowl. It's so hard to win in this league. But I mean, you talk about Tom Brady in the later stage of his careers, man. I mean, you can debate that Tom Brady in his 40s was better than Tom Brady in his 20s and his 30s, because I mean, that's when really he had the game figured out. The highest football IQ I think we'll ever see, unless Patrick Mahomes can reach that level as well too. But Robbie mentioned a little bit about different eras. I think that Mahomes could potentially beat out Tom Brady in a lot of the statistical record books for passing yards and all that, but you just see how much more this game has shifted to offense. I think that if a young Tom Brady was put in today's game, I think that obviously he will be putting up similar numbers to Patrick Mahomes in terms of passing and touchdowns. But like I said, for me, I mean, growing up watching this guy, I will always be a huge Tom Brady supporter, and I think it's always going to be very difficult for me to put Patrick Mahomes there. But I mean, you talk about where Patrick Mahomes is now, I mean, I think he's probably already a top 5 quarterback all time, right? And it's crazy that we're already having this discussion. I mean, you start talking about him versus a Joe Montana or a Peyton Manning, what guys of those caliber, and you have a real debate there. So for only 6 years, we're maybe seeing one of the best starts to a quarterback's career in NFL history, maybe the best. So the sky's really the limit.
Yeah, and I saw Tom Brady win a couple Super Bowls too. Obviously not the earlier ones, but from the 15 to the one with Tampa Bay. But I'm always a big fan of seeing players break records in today's game, and so it's really interesting that back to back. I mean, the perfect handing of the torch, if you will, of Tom Brady to Patrick Mahomes is happening, right? We're seeing it in basketball too, right? I think games like that. I mean, just like very good passing in the torch where we thought we saw the goat, and hold your horses because we got another guy coming in.
What's even more wild to me too is because of how much Brady dominated, especially in the late 2010s. Now you look at all the starting quarterbacks in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes has free reigns. There's no other quarterback that's starting for a team that won a Super Bowl with their team besides Matthew Stafford. You have Matthew Stafford with his reign, Russell Wilson with his reign, Aaron Rodgers with his one as well. But I mean, it's really no other quarterback is in the league right now has had this postseason success that even rivals Patrick Mahomes. I mean, I remember back in the era where Eli Manning had 2 reigns, Roethlisberger had 2, Brady had 4. I mean, we're starting a new age here. We're going to need to see if guys like Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, CJ Stroud, Jordan Love, even too, we'll see what he does in Green Bay, if these guys can rise to the occasion. But the evidence is clear. in this quarterback era, Patrick Mahomes is the big dog. And if you want to be able to win your reign, if you want to be able to cement your legacy, you're going to need to get past the guys in Arrowhead Stadium.
Absolutely. I mean, what I love in the AFC this year is how much parity I think there will be over the next couple of seasons. You mentioned some of the names: Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. You even have Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be hopefully back and cause problems next year. Tua Tagovailoa, who I think will also be causing problems next year. And the other quarterbacks in the AFC besides Mahomes, Justin Herbert, you didn't even get to mention him. Hopefully Anthony Richardson can come back healthy. T-Law, Stroud. There's so many good. Burrow. I mean, who knows who else? What other names I am missing? The AFC has so much parity at quarterback. There's so many good quarterbacks in the AFC. I think if this stays similar, if players stay and sign those long-term contracts, I think this is what could put Mahomes over the top. Is how good the AFC is. Like, that's the big thing for me. Is at the end of the day, the AFC has the better, I think, more of the better teams in the league, I would say. I mean, how top? I mean, the NFC is very top heavy, and then the bottom part of it is awful, and nothing against the NFC at all. The AFC has your top 3 or 4 teams, and then everyone else, other than like 2 teams, could make the playoffs. That's just how it is, and I love it. I mean, granted, we will see that number dwindle down a little bit because I bet some teams are going to fall off next season, even more than they already have. But the AFC has so many solid quarterbacks that I think you could possibly put Mahomes in that conversation even more. If he could possibly be the GOAT, if his team can continue to play as they are with how many other good quarterbacks there are in the AFC, that it's going to be so much fun to see over time. Him going up against Burrow in big moments. Allen again. Can Allen win a playoff game against Mahomes? You have Lamar Jackson. It's going to be so fun to watch out for. But what Brady has and the records he has, there's some that are going to be tough to beat. Passing yards, I think, is going to be very fun because Brady, according to this, what I have in front of me, had 89,000 yards in total. He did have, I think, the first stat that Mahomes will beat him in. One, how many Super Bowls do you think the Chiefs are going to play in over the next 10 years? Let's just say 3, and the Chiefs win 2 of them. That would level him with Brady in Super Bowl MVPs. In postseasons, I mean, if he gets to 10 Super Bowls, that'll be ridiculous. Because Brady had 10, he went 7-3. Mahomes makes it to 10. Listen, if he has a better record in the Super Bowl, we could possibly make this argument even more. But there's so many things that you could look at and nitpick here and there. But it's just insane that we're already having this argument so soon after Brady retired. It's crazy to me.
I mean, yeah, but listen, like I said, obviously Tom Brady with the longevity he had, because one thing about Brady too is he only got hurt one season. I mean, he missed one season to that ACL injury following the undefeated season in 2008. So obviously we have to see if Mahomes can stay healthy. He's stayed healthy so far in his career, but as your body gets older, I mean, Brady really was almost a psychopath with how he approached his workout routines and making sure he stayed at the top of his level. I mean, the nutrition diets he had and all that. And that's a big reason why he was still dominating into his early to mid 40s. I mean, I don't think we've ever seen an athlete do anything like that in the sport like football. I mean, especially in the 4 main sports, because, you see golfers usually go to later ages, but I mean, to see a football player be that dominant in their 40s, I mean, if Mahomes can do that, sure, then we could talk about it, but that's just so long away. But yeah, just the fact that Mahomes had this start to his career so far is remarkable. And just the fact that we have a clear face of the NFL right after Tom Brady retires is great for the sport. I mean, it almost something similar happened in the NBA because Michael Jordan retired in 2003. And in that same draft class when LeBron James came to the NBA. So just that clean transition is something that's great for the league. And like I said, Kansas City Chiefs, they are the new standard.
I hate it. I don't like it already. Because I listen, the narrative is great for what they did this year. The fact that they can do it with the lack of receivers is insane. But like I said earlier, it's going to come down to, are they actually going to address this position this year? I mean, listen, one thing I want to address, back with San Francisco, what do you think they do to get back here if they can? Because I think, personally, they're going to lose Chase Young. I think that's going to happen in free agency. I think Chase Young is going to leave, and he's going to sign a big-time contract. Listen, there's a couple of good or even underrated edge rushers in free agency this year. One of my underrated ones is New York Jets stud Bryce Huff, who I think is one of the more underrated edge rushers in the game because of what he can provide to you. And he was that good with how good the Jets edges are. Like how many they even have, but and two, what stats he was able to put up over the last couple of years. So I think with Chase Young probably leaving, I'm interested to see what the Niners do. Listen, they have, I think, holes in the secondary as well. The secondary market's also going to be very interesting because, like, if they can go out and get a better corner, get another edge rusher to replace Young, because Young's going to want the bag, you can't blame him. It's going to be very tough to get back, I think, for San Francisco because other teams in the NFC are going to get loaded up. You're talking possibly Los Angeles. I think possibly Seattle. Detroit kids with their now 1-2 games of playoff experience. 2, 3. How many games did they play? 3. Yep, there you go. That's how much I remember. Detroit, 3 games of playoff experience. They will come back and I think be in the conversation for the North. Packers, can they actually get themselves a real wide receiver? I mean, there will be other conversations as well for other NFC teams. And you look at the Eagles, Dallas. Can someone else emerge because why not? The Falcons. I mean, there's a lot of teams that you will put in this conversation that will cause San Francisco problems. The question is, can San Francisco actually reload and get back here? I'm interested to see if that happens.
And it's going to be tough too, because eventually you're going to have to play Brock Purdy. Now, whether or not you believe that he constitutes that money, just the fact of the matter remains that, well, Daniel Jones got paid $40 million. And listen, this is something we talked a lot about. But if Daniel Jones gets paid $40 million for winning the playoff game, most likely Baker Mayfield's going to get paid too this year for winning the playoff game. What is Brock Purdy going to get from leading the team almost to a Super Bowl victory? And this is where a lot of times teams have to usually capitalize when a quarterback is in their rookie contracts. That's when you really have a lot of cap space you can devote to the rest of the team. And that's really a big reason as to why the 49ers do have a loaded roster around Purdy. So to me, it's going to be crucial these next couple of years before you have to pay Brock Purdy to get this team ready to win. And like I said, the window really is now because, sure, they have a lot of aging veterans, but this is still a very good football team. I mean, we talk about them almost defeating the Kansas City Chiefs in that Super Bowl. I mean, maybe if the muff punt doesn't happen, maybe if the kicked extra point doesn't happen, maybe if Dre Greenlaw doesn't tear his Achilles running out on the field, we could have a different Super Bowl champion right now that we're talking about. So it's just you have to make sure you're ready for next season. There's going to be teams that are there. There's going to be Philadelphia, Dallas, Detroit, Green Bay, the Rams, teams that are going to come and are going to challenge for this NFC conference. It's just that you have to trust in yourself. You know, you've been here. You usually are the standard of the NFC. At least you have it in the past couple of years. And for San Francisco, just put your all into next year. Get back there.
Yeah. And I if you want to know what I think they need to get back there, the Chiefs, that is, it's number 15's got to stay healthy. I mean, Patrick Mahomes got to stay healthy. I mean, that's really all it takes. I mean, again, he proved so much this year that it's not it really for him. And you know, I think there will come a day, as we've seen in the past, there will come a day where he's not going to be the final one standing, right? He is going to lose. He's not going to win every year. He may not win next year. Who knows, right? You know, we're still so far away. But what we did learn is he's not, not that there was any question about this, but he does not need the best team surrounding him to win. He can be the difference of a game, and that to me is what separates him from everybody else.
I just have this one question. Chris Jones is a free agent. Did we know about this? I mean, well, one, you have to imagine he's coming back, right? Right? I mean, I don't know what KC's cap situation is, but the free agent market this year is oddly interesting because there are some very, very good players and some very underrated players. Underrated players like Carl Lawson, who only played like 4 games this year. I'm kidding. But there are so many underrated players that could really elevate like a Chiefs or to be fair, the Niners can really use some of these players as well. I don't know. I mean, Marcus Davenport, I feel like could be an intriguing option for San Fran. If you want another idea, I mean, you want to go out and get like a linebacker to replace the 1 year possibly losing Dre Greenlaw. I think a short-term deal on Zadarius Smith, I feel like could be an intriguing option. But on the other side, KC, you have to re-sign Chris Jones. If you want an idea for them, There's not a lot. I mean, I would just, if you really want to make this fun, you reassure the middle. I mean, they have Carl Loftus on the edge. I think they actually could possibly go and get another edge because why not? What could possibly go wrong? And I'm thinking a guy like Yannick Ngakoue because he's going to probably get nothing. He's going to get very little, even though he had a decent season in Chicago. So I feel like that could be an idea. But there's so many intriguing options in free agency here. I mean, Derrick Henry's a free agent. Let's just throw out some predictions now. We have 5 minutes left. Who's the most intriguing free agent this year?
Well, I just want to talk about Chris Jones real quick because actually at the parade he did say, and I will quote, "I ain't going nowhere, baby." So I don't think the Chiefs have to worry about that.
Yeah, how much will he have the money to pay him?
Even still, the Chiefs are not going to let that happen. He really is the main player on that defense. He is the guy who ultimately made that game-changing play at the end of the Super Bowl. I just don't see Chris Jones leaving. I think that he is the cornerstone of that defense, which, by the way, that's another thing I need to get to mention, too. Steve Spagnuolo, another Super Bowl championship for that guy. I mean, what he did for the Chiefs and the Giants, a fantastic coordinator. I saw people say, should he get another head coaching job? I think you can make the argument for it. He coached the Rams shortly after the Giants won Super Bowl 42. It didn't really work out there. But, I mean, if a lot of other coaches are getting head coaching jobs, I think Spag should be in the consideration as well.
Yeah, that's really like intriguing free agents. I saw Josh Allen from the Jaguars is free agent. I mean,
there's the Chiefs have another one that I forgot.
Right, that he's excellent. Was Pro Bowl linebacker this year. He's definitely one I would. I mean, what do you think he's going?
Josh Allen.
Do you think he's going back?
Oh, that's an intriguing idea. I mean, Josh Allen going back to Jacksonville. I hope Jacksonville's going to have the money because Josh Allen's very talented. I feel like there will be a lot of teams that will go out and try to demand for his services. I feel like a team in the North could possibly go after him. I think Green Bay might be an option. I feel like if they can land a guy like a Josh Allen with the scheme they have, I feel like that could be really good. The one player I forgot, Kansas City has to make a choice, guys. Who do you keep? Chris Jones or L'Jarius Sneed? Because they're both free agents. And they only have $22 million in cap space. Now with restructures, there is a situation where you can pay both of them. However, there will be a year where you will have to pay Patrick Mahomes, what is it? $72 million in one season. Do you afford that risk in the future in 3 years to go out and pay Chris Jones, who I'm thinking is going to make about $15 million, and L'Jarius Sneed is going to want probably more than that? What do you do? Like, what do you do for Kansas City?
Obviously, I think you go Chris Jones over L'Jarius Sneed because I think Sneed's a great player, but I think that Trent McDuffie has established himself as a cornerback one with that defense. I think having that presence up the middle is, I think, really what you need for the Chiefs, especially with the way they played all season, which that's another thing, too, a stat I didn't get to bring up as well. The Chiefs did not allow another team to score 28 or more points all season. That's a phenomenal stat. And you consider how much shootouts they got in before, against the Bills. They put up 35 points against the Eagles, or the Eagles put up 35 against them in the Super Bowl last year. Just the turnaround of this defense has been phenomenal. And I think that if you want to continue that, you have to keep Chris Jones going forward.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just weird to just point this in the back of my head. This team almost lost to Zach Wilson in a come-from-behind effort.
I mean, they lost to Aiden O'Connell, who didn't complete a pass until after the first quarter.
That's very true. Very true. Chris, any last thoughts?
No, I mean, I think we did a lot. We talked about a lot of good stuff today. Just congrats to the Chiefs and everyone that supports that team. I mean, they won another Super Bowl. They deserved it, and it was just an excellent Super Bowl all around.
Well, getting your fourth Super Bowl, you're now up with the big boys. The Chiefs have tied the Giants and Packers in the Super Bowl total. And listen, as far as Mahomes goes, they could be up there with maybe the team that will win the most Super Bowls ever. So very well deserved. This is a team that has suffered for many years. I remember the days when Matt Cassell was leading them out there. I remember the days of Alex Smith, which they were still a very good team. They just couldn't really get it done in the playoffs. Listen, they're a likable team, likable fan base. I know people have their reservations against this, especially with how much now they are in the spotlight due to a variety of factors, but there's no better team in football right now. It's very well deserved, and rightfully they are the faces of the NFL.
100% agree. And on that note, that will be the end of today's episode of Into the Stands. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what you see, make sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe to the YouTube channel. But for Colin and Chris, I'm Robbie saying so long. We'll see you guys next week. Goodbye, everyone.